miles. And it's really the same idea. You could figure this out. I mean, you could always just calculate it directly in your calculator. But of course, you'll get the same answer, as you can see. Here, I'm just showing you here that 300 over 20 still gives us 15. So we still multiply, and we get the answer as above. Okay. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Are there any questions? Okay. Now, number 3 is a little bit different, right? I mean, right away, you can see it's going to be different because we want to know how many gallons are needed to drive 30 miles. That's for number 3. Now, we do have to be careful as well, because if I try to multiply like before, 1 gallon, wait, hold on, yeah, I made a mistake here. If I tried to multiply by the original rate, let me just fix that. That should be, let me just cross this out. The original rate, remember, was this, 15 miles per gallon. So this is actually what we want to multiply by. But if we, for some reason, multiply by the original rate, let me go to that, 15 miles per gallon. Well, if you multiply, what happens? Well, this is what's going to happen. You get this. You get 450 square miles per 1 gallon. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? At least in the context of the problem. It doesn't make any sense. Right? What should happen, intuitively, what should happen is somehow the unit miles somehow should cancel, right? Because we want to know, we want gallons, how many gallons. So that unit miles should somehow disappear. Okay, well, if this didn't work, we're going to multiply by, right? This doesn't make any sense. So instead, we're going to multiply by this. We're going to invert that unit, right? This is the unit we had before. We're going to invert that unit, 1 gallon per 15 miles. And this we're going to multiply by 30 miles. And just like I said a minute ago, the miles, right, that unit will cancel. And so what we're left with is this, 30 over 15 gallons, which is 2 gallons. Good. So that's what we get. So basically here I'm just showing you, you have to be careful. You know, make sure the answer you get actually makes sense. You know, think about what the numbers are telling you. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's good. So again, I'm sorry about that mistake. All right, so that's good. Now, let me see. So now we're going to move on to another, oh no, example. Okay. There we go. Okay. Here's another one. So let's suppose we can walk, you know, at a rate of 1.5 miles per hour. So that's the speed that we're walking, right? We want to know how far can I walk if I walk for 4 hours, so nonstop. So in other words, if I'm walking at the same rate, right, you know, my speed doesn't change. So somehow I'm able to do that. How far would I walk if I walk for 4 hours without stopping? Well, just like in the previous example, we should probably get the rate first. And that's what I'm doing here. 1.5 miles per hour. Notice we have, excuse me, notice we actually do have a unit rate, right? How do I know that? Because the denominator is 1 hour. Okay, so what do we do to get number 1? If we want to walk for 4 hours nonstop, just like before, we're going to multiply. By multiplying, as you can see, Those are going to cancel. Right? We want distance, so we don't want hours in there, in the answer that is. We just want distance. So in this case, we want miles. So by multiplying, the units cancel, and we're left with 1.5 times 4 miles, which turns out to be 6 miles. So for 4 hours, we're going to walk 6 miles. Excuse me. Okay. So that's number 1. Let's look at number 2. So again, for number 2, we want to know how long would it take to walk 9 miles. Okay, so I went ahead. How long is it going to take us to walk 9 miles, assuming we're walking at that rate for whatever reason? You know, we're not walking faster, we're not running, we're walking at that rate. Well, again, you have to be careful, right? Because if we just multiply by the original rate without thinking, right, what's going to happen here? Well, if we multiply this by 9 miles, as you can see here, you can see, hopefully you can see that, excuse me, the units are not going to cancel. The units are not going to cancel, right? You end up getting the units of miles squared per hours. And now what does that mean? I honestly don't know. You know, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry, that doesn't make any sense. So what do we want to do? We can flip the rate. That is, we can invert it. In other words, we can invert to get this. 1 hour per 1.5 miles. Now we'll cancel, right? Because now if we multiply, you can see that miles, that unit is going to cancel. Right? Those knock each other out. They cancel. And all you're left with is the unit hour. So we multiply. So we get 9 over 1.5 hours, which turns out to be 6 hours. So that's what we end up getting here. Okay. So that's what we get here. Okay. Now, before I move on, let me just keep this. Just pause this.